God, I hope this one's fiction. My dad's read it. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am taking you through all of the non-fiction books that are on my TBR. I do read quite a lot of fiction. I will put my hand on my heart and say that, but I do sometimes dabble into the non-fiction section of the bookshop. There are a couple that I really tend to go towards, whether it is self-help, whether it is a celebrity memoir, but there are a couple of non-fiction books that have always caught my eye. Some of these are on my Kindle, some of these are on my physical TBR, but they mainly sit into the two kind of categories that I have spoken about. And the first one is Everyone You Hate Is Going to Die by Daniel Sloss. He is one of my favourite comedians at the moment. He is a Scottish comedian and he can be quite kind of dark humoured. I know that one of his shows, Jigsaw, has kind of second-handedly contributed to over 20,000 relationship breakups. So I am really interested to see how his kind of humour, how the way that he delivers jokes, how he can be quite deadpan. I'm really interested to see if that is going to translate into the pages of this book. Next up is Sorry I'm Late, I Didn't Want to Come by Jessica Pan. First off, I absolutely adore that title. I've even got a t-shirt somewhere in my wardrobe that says that exact phrase. But this is Jessica's memoir of living as an entire year as an extrovert. Jessica is quite introverted, she keeps to herself a lot, she gets a lot of her energy from being by herself. So she gives herself the challenge to live 1 year as an extrovert and say yes to everything that is put in front of her, to talk to strangers in a cafe or to talk to the person beside her at the bus stop. It sounds like such an interesting concept, and I am quite an ambivert. I can take energy from being by myself. I can sometimes take energy from being with other people. So I'm really interested to see how that kind of year-long experiment worked out for her. Next up is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Like the Daniel Sloss book, I actually got this as part of a Dubray personal shopper experience. I said that I was into a lot of non-fiction, I said that I was into a lot of books that had heavy topics about food, and the person that I was matched with said that this would be the perfect read for me. This is about Michelle, who is Korean American and has a kind of a tumultuous relationship with her mother, but when her mother is diagnosed with cancer and loses her life to the disease, Michelle decides to dig a little deeper into her Korean heritage. So she goes in search of a lot more Korean culture than she would have been exposed to. More Korean films, much more Korean food. And I'm really interested to see about how this kind of development of her culture is going to shape her as a person after the death of the person who was probably the strongest influence of that in her life. Next up are two books by Caroline Foran. There is The Confidence Kit and there is Owning It. I struggle quite a lot with anxiety, and these two books sound like the perfect thing to help me through that. One of my close friends from home recommended these books to me when I was going through quite a tough time, and she said that they really helped her to kind of calm herself during really anxious situations, to ground herself a little bit more, to give her a little bit more of a scope of what is happening. The two books deal with anxiety in quite similar ways. They give you really great tips on how to cope with an anxiety attack, how to cope with a panic attack, how to ground yourself a little bit more. And they give you also a walkthrough of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and has been really suggested as a helper for people with anxiety. It's not something that's going to cure your anxiety, but it might make it a little bit easier to deal with. Next up is How Do We Know We're Doing It Right by Pandora Sykes. This is a kind of a guide to modern life in a way. Some of the things that we should really be questioning, like why are we so influenced by fashion these days? Why do we keep grinding on at the 9 to 5 just to prove a point to somebody who's not really there for us to prove a point to? This sounds like a really interesting look into modern life as growing up as a millennial woman, growing up as people who are in the kind of technologically driven age. It's something that I am genuinely so excited to get to. I loved Pandora's podcast, The High Low, that she presented with Dolly Alderton. It's a huge missing chunk in my life since it stopped, and I feel like this is a really great way to go back and visit Pandora again. Next is one that I really should start reading soon, and it's Stop People Pleasing by Patrick King. I was given this by one of my friends, and I don't know if that's like a subtle dig, but I have got a kind of tendency to people please and to forget that the word no exists sometimes. So I feel like this is going to give me a little bit of a push in the right direction to kind of set firmer boundaries, to think more about how I need to kind of put myself before other people and stop setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. Hopefully this book has got the answers I need. Next up is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. This is one that was recommended to me years and years ago when my sleeping patterns were absolute trash. And I know that that is the same for so many people at the moment. We're either too highly caffeinated, too highly stimulated by phones, by TV, by games, by books. So it can be really difficult to actually just switch off. If I showed you my average sleeping time on my Fitbit, it would terrify you. Matthew Walker walks through why sleep is so important in daily life, why we need to get the right amount of sleep, what the right amount of sleep actually is, and how to do a kind of a cleanse of your bedtime routine, of your whole day, so that you're working up to get the proper amount of sleep that you need. It is definitely something that I need to read, and I kind of don't know why I've gotten it yet. I think it's that I'm a little bit scared of being called out. Next up is a book that I borrowed from one of my friends, then she moved away and I completely forgot to give it back to her. But it is Feminist Fight Club by Jessica Bennett, and this is kind of a how to assert yourself in the workplace book. It gives you a lot of tips of how to deal with micromanagement, of how to deal with stressful situations in the workplace, of how to deal with kind of difficult male-led management, and how to assert yourself as a female worker or somebody who presents themselves as female in the workplace, how to be a little bit more assertive, how to be a little bit more confident without pissing people off. Next up is Taste by Stanley Tucci. I am obsessed with Stanley. If he brought out the phone book, I'd sit there and read it for hours. I haven't seen his show Italy yet. I do have a couple of episodes of it saved up that I want to watch one day. But I feel like this is more of a memoir than a cookbook. I have asked a couple of people if there are recipes in it, and I think there is a couple of recipes dotted here and there throughout the book. But moreover, this is Stanley's life as the son of an Italian immigrant with a very heavily influence of Italian heritage and Italian cuisine in his family. So I'm really interested to see how that has shaped him, not just as a person, but as how he enjoys food, how he cooks, what his kind of tastes are when it comes to food, cooking, wine, nights out, things like that. I adore Stanley and I cannot wait to get to this one. Next up is Open, Why Asking for Help Can Save Your Life by Frankie Bridge. Frankie is a former member of the pop group The Saturdays. She was also a member of S Club 8, and I absolutely adored her as a pop singer. Her book chronicles her struggles with hospitalization, with illnesses that she has had, and how much it just benefits everybody that you know for you to reach out and say, I'm not doing super well at the moment. I just need to speak to somebody. I need somebody who is on my side for whatever comes. This is again something that I need to take on board. I've never really been one to ask for help when I need it. I've always been the one to truck through it. So I feel like this book is definitely going to give me a little bit of a push in the right direction. Next up is 32 Words for Field by Mankan Mangan. I am a fluent Irish speaker, although I don't really get a lot of opportunity to speak it since I've moved to Germany. But any book that has something to do with the Irish language, and I absolutely ate it up. This one is about how name places and culture in Ireland has been changed so much by the Irish language. I was talking about this book with my dad when I bought it, and he said that even a couple of fields around the area that I grew up have such specific names that anyone who came into the area and was new and was looking for where to go and directions would probably struggle to find where they were going. And I know that this is something that's really common with other areas of Ireland as well, so I'm really interested to see how much of an impact our language has had when we don't even speak it that much anymore. Next is one that is a little bit of a touchy subject for so many people, and it's still a little bit too prevalent for me to read it at the moment. That is A State of Emergency by Ireland's boyfriend, Richard Chambers. Richard is a journalist with Virgin Media, one of our television stations back in Ireland, and he was quite heavily involved with the reporting of the pandemic in its early stages as it progressed throughout the country. And this is Richard's memoir of delivering that news to everybody in Ireland pretty much every single evening since the pandemic was announced in Ireland. I had COVID recently, so I think that I just need a little bit more of a distance from this book before I go and pick it up. My cousin worked in the Mater Hospital in Ireland, which is mentioned very early in the pages of this book, so she said she also needed a little bit of a bracket between that and reading this book. But when she did get to it, she said it was a really great book, and I trust her judgment. Just need a little bit more time first. Next up is Love That Story by Jonathan Van Ness. I was gifted this for my birthday from a couple of friends of mine. I have already read Over the Top, so I have got a little bit of Jonathan's backstory there. But this is their newest memoir. I think it came out in the early stages of 2022. And I'm not entirely sure what this one is actually about, but anything that Jonathan has written before, anytime that I've seen them on Instagram or on TikTok or anywhere, there's such a ball of enjoyment, there's such a ball of energy and excitement that I just know that this is going to be a really wholesome, really comforting read that I might need when I'm feeling a little bit down. Last up is Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given. This was again gifted to me as a Christmas present about 2 years ago, and I haven't gotten around to it since. I have heard a couple of criticisms about this, that it's very much kind of straight, white, cis, het feminism. And that's not entirely the kind of feminism that I sign up to. Mine is a little bit more inclusive than that. So I'm not entirely sure if this book and I are going to get along as well as I'd hoped. But I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to go in with a little bit more of an open mind and let's see how I get on with it. Those are all of the nonfiction books that I have got waiting for me to get to. Are there any of those on your list as well? Is there anything that you think I should start off with? Or what is your favorite nonfiction book? If you would love to leave a comment but you can't think of anything to say, then just leave me the brain emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.